All right, everyone, get ready, because today we're going deep, really deep into bride scams. You know, they also go by romance scams or international marriage scams. And you might be thinking, shh, that'll never happen to me. But hold on.
Right.
These scams are way more common than you think.
Definitely.
And the really crazy part is that they exploit something we all crave.
Yeah.
You know, like genuine connection.
Yeah, it's really unsettling, you know?
Right.
The way these scams take something like real human longing and twist it with this cold, calculated manipulation. It's not just about the money they steal. It's about how they exploit the victim's desire for love and companionship, you know?
Okay, so let's break this down. Like, how do these scams actually work?
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
You're scrolling through a dating site or even social media, right? And you come across this profile and it's almost like too good to be true. You know,
oh, yeah.
Stunning photos, the bio is super engaging, and this person seems to share all your interests.
Right.
And that's where it all starts.
Okay.
The scammer has basically crafted this persona designed to hook you in.
It's like catfishing, but like way worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Like they build this whole identity just to trick someone.
Yeah. They use stolen photos a lot of the time.
Wow.
And they build these carefully constructed backstories. It's crazy.
So it's more than just a fake profile.
Oh, definitely.
It's like they're becoming this person.
Yeah, and they use this thing called social engineering.
Okay, now I've heard that term thrown around, but what does that actually mean in this context?
So it's about manipulating people to do things that might not be in their best interest.
Okay.
In these bride scams, it means like rapidly building trust.
Right.
And this false sense of intimacy.
So they might? What?
Oh, they'll shower you with compliments.
Okay.
Profess these deep feelings really quickly and create this sense of like a whirlwind romance.
Oh, so they're playing on that like fairy tale instant connection.
Exactly, yeah. And then on top of that, they often invent these reasons why they can't meet in person.
Okay.
Like maybe they say they're overseas for work or family reasons, something like that.
So it adds to the mystery.
Exactly.
It makes them seem even more
desirable,
yeah.
Right.
It's like the classic out of reach, therefore more appealing kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And it works. And once the victim is emotionally invested, that's when they introduce the financial element.
Uh-oh.
This could be like a sudden medical emergency, a legal problem, or like a desperate need to travel.
So that's when they start asking for money.
Yes, but it's rarely like a blunt demand.
Right.
They'll weave these elaborate stories that are meant to like tug at your heartstrings.
Oh, so they might say they need money for like a sick child or something.
Or to escape a dangerous situation, something like that.
And I imagine like the amounts start small.
Yeah.
Almost like they're hesitant to ask at first, but then they escalate over time.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Wow.
They really understand how to persuade people.
It's scary how they exploit like people's good intentions.
Right.
Their compassion.
And sadly, you know, victims often send money through these methods that you can't trace.
Oh.
Like wire transfers or gift cards.
Oh, wow.
Because they believe they're helping the person they love.
They think they're like saving them or something.
Exactly.
So at this point, the victim is like completely emotionally invested. They've already sent money.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, then they disappear.
Oh, wow.
Once the scammer has gotten enough money, they vanish.
So they might.
They might ghost the victim, block them on everything, or come up with some final excuse to cut off contact.
It's just...
And the victim is left heartbroken, financially drained, and often feeling incredibly foolish.
It's like devastating on so many levels.
It really is.
And I bet the shame and embarrassment makes it even harder for victims to come forward and talk about it.
Definitely. And that's why it's so important to understand the tactics they use.
Yeah.
They were deliberately targeted and groomed. You know, this wasn't their fault.
Now, before we go any further, you mentioned that there are like different types of bride scams, right? Can you tell me more about that?
Of course. So the basic premise is the same, right?
Okay.
But the scammers, they tailor their approach to fit different narratives. One of the most common ones is using fake dating profiles.
Oh, wow.
They create these super elaborate personas, and they even use video calls sometimes, and stolen photos to make it seem like they're real.
So you might think you're video chatting with a real person.
Yeah.
But it could be a deep fake or someone completely different.
It's a real possibility these days with all this technology.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And another type is the foreign marriage agency scam.
Okay.
These operate disguised as like legitimate matchmaking services.
So they're like businesses.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow.
And they charge these huge fees for visas, travel arrangements, and even for communication with these supposed matches.
So they target people who are
Yes.
specifically looking for international relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they make it seem like a totally legit service.
And then there's the military scam, right?
Right. This is where the scammer pretends to be a soldier
Right.
stationed overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And they use these emotional appeals, you know?
Oh, so they say they want it.
Like they really want to marry the victim.
Okay.
But they need money to come home or to pay for medical expenses or whatever.
So they're taking advantage of our like respect for the military.
Unfortunately,
It's awful.
It is. Yeah.
So knowing how like sophisticated these scams are, what are some of the warning signs?
Right.
How can people protect themselves?
Well, awareness is key.
Yeah.
And there are some red flags that can really help you spot a potential scam before you get too involved.
This is like crucial information, I think.
Definitely.
So what are some of the things we should be looking out for?
Okay, so one of the biggest red flags is the pace of the relationship.
Okay.
Like if someone you just met online is already talking about love, marriage, making all these big promises, that's a huge warning sign.
Oh.
Real relationships take time to develop.
So that whirlwind romance feeling could actually be a sign that something's not right.
Exactly.
It's almost like counterintuitive, right?
It is.
You'd think that kind of like intense connection would be a good thing.
Well, it's a really powerful manipulation tactic.
Oh, wow.
They're trying to get past your defenses, overwhelm you with affection, and get you emotionally hooked before you can even think rationally.
That makes sense. Are there any other like red flags we should watch out for? What about when the conversation turns to finances?
Absolutely. Any request for money, especially early on in the relationship, should be like a huge red flag.
Like no matter what.
It doesn't matter how convincing their story is, how dire their circumstances seem, how much they say they love you. If someone you've only met online asks for money, it's almost definitely a scam.
Okay, that's a really good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
But what if it's not like a direct request?
Right.
What if they just kind of hint at financial troubles or try to like get your sympathy?
Be wary of those situations too.
Okay.
Scammers will often sort of test the waters by, sharing sob stories or subtly suggesting they're struggling. They're trying to gauge how willing you are to help, kind of priming you for a bigger request later on.
So even those like seemingly innocent mentions of money problems could be part of a bigger plan.
Exactly. It's all about paying attention to the overall pattern. Like, do they always seem to steer the conversation towards their problem, their needs?
Right.
Do they avoid answering questions directly about their finances? These are all subtle cues that,
Something's off.
Yeah, some of them might be amiss.
Okay, so we've got like rapid relationship progression, requests for money. Those are big ones.
Huge red flags.
What else should people be looking out for?
Pay attention to inconsistencies in their stories.
Oh, okay.
Do the details change over time?
Right.
Are there gaps in their explanations or contradictions? Scammers often create these elaborate lies.
Yeah.
And those lies can start to unravel if you look closely.
It's like they're spinning a web, and if you tug on one thread, the whole thing could fall apart.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
And we can use like technology to our advantage too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we can do reverse image searches, see if their photos are stolen.
Yes, research their name online, all that.
It's like we have to become online detectives.
In a way, yeah.
Be more proactive about verifying information.
Definitely.
Rather than just taking it at face value.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
A legitimate person, someone who's genuinely interested in you.
Yeah.
They'll be happy to give you more information, answer your questions honestly.
Right. But a scammer will probably
get evasive or defensive.
That makes sense. So we've talked about the red flags. Let's talk about like
for sure
steps people can take to protect themselves.
Okay.
What are like your top tips for staying safe online?
First and foremost, be really careful about the information you share online, especially on dating sites and social media.
Right.
Avoid giving out personal details. like your home address, financial information, or even like specific places you go to a lot.
So creating a buffer?
Yeah, like a layer of protection,
Yeah,
not giving away too much too soon.
I like that. Okay, what else?
And choose like reputable dating platforms.
Okay.
Ones with strong security measures.
Right.
You want to avoid those obscure websites, the ones that don't have good verification processes.
It's like choosing like a well-lit street instead of a dark alley, you know?
Exactly. You want to be somewhere safe.
Yeah, with like some accountability.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
And if you do decide to connect with someone off the platform, use a separate email address and phone number
good idea.
that aren't connected to your main accounts.
So like compartmentalize it.
Exactly. Create a separate space for these interactions. Smart. And I know you're going to say this.
Oh, absolutely.
Never send money.
Never, ever send money to someone you've only met online.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how convincing they are or how strong your feelings are.
Yeah.
That is the cardinal rule of online safety.
It sounds like so simple.
It does.
But I know it can be really hard in the moment.
It can when you're caught up in the emotions.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to have a support system.
Okay.
Talk to friends, family about your online interactions.
Okay.
Get an outside perspective, you know?
Yeah, because they might see things that
red flags that you miss.
We miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when we're blinded by emotion.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need a fresh pair of eyes to see those warning signs.
And remember, if you do come across a suspicious profile or anything that just seems off, report it to the platform.
Immediately.
Right away. You could be saving someone else from becoming a victim. It's about taking action, right?
It is.
Like collective action. If we all report this stuff, it makes it harder for these scammers to operate.
Yeah, it disrupts their whole system.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. Yeah. And talk about what happens if despite all these precautions, someone does fall victim to a bride scam. It's a tough topic.
It is.
But it's a reality we need to address.
Definitely.
So what steps should someone take if they realize they've been scammed?
The first thing, the most important thing is to stop all contact with the scammer immediately. Block them everywhere. Change your phone number if you have to.
Wow.
Just cut off all communication.
Yeah, it's like you just got to rip that Band-Aid off.
Right.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You got to sever that connection to protect yourself.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's crucial to remember that the scammer is the one at fault here.
Right.
Not the victim.
Yeah.
These people they're skilled manipulators. They prey on vulnerability. They prey on trust.
So even though it might feel like, oh, I made a mistake,
yeah,
you were deliberately targeted.
Exactly. This was calculated.
Yeah.
And once you've cut off contact, the next step is to report the scam.
Okay, so where do you even start with that?
Well, you need to report it to the platform where you met the spammer.
Okay.
And also to the proper authorities.
Are there like specific agencies that handle this kind of thing?
Yeah, in the U.S., you can report it to the FTC.
Okay.
The Federal Trade Commission, or the IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center.
Okay.
Other countries have similar agencies.
So there are like systems in place to deal with these crimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though it often feels like these scammers just get away with it.
They operate with impunity, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so important to report these scams, even if you feel embarrassed, you know, or shamed.
Yeah.
Your report could help the authorities actually track these people down and prevent others from becoming victims.
So it's almost like taking back some control, contributing to a larger effort.
Exactly.
And I imagine documenting everything is important too, right?
Absolutely.
Like saving...
Gather any evidence you have.
Emails,
chat logs, transaction records.
Wow.
This could be helpful for law enforcement.
Right.
Or if you decide to take legal action.
It's like building a case file.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're not sure you'll need it.
It's always better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Exactly. And speaking of legal action.
Right.
Is that something that victims should consider?
It's definitely worth talking to an attorney to see what your options are, especially if you've lost a significant amount of money.
Are there like specific legal avenues that people can pursue in these cases?
It really depends on the specifics of the scam. But there might be ways to recover funds
Okay.
through civil litigation
Mm.
or working with law enforcement to freeze assets, things like that.
Wow.
An attorney who specializes in fraud
Right.
or internet crimes can really guide you
Okay.
on the best course of action.
So it's about, like,
Mm.
knowing your rights
Yeah,
and exploring all the options.
exactly.
But beyond the legal stuff
Right.
and the financial stuff,
Yeah,
we need to talk about the emotional impact.
definitely.
Because these scams, they really take a toll.
They do.
So victims often experience...
Oh, a whole range of emotions.
Mm.
Betrayal, shame, anger,
Right.
grief.
It's a lot to process.
It is, and it's important to seek support during that time.
Yeah, so where can victims turn for that kind of emotional support?
There are organizations that offer counseling,
Okay.
specifically for victims of romance scams.
Hmm.
There are support groups.
Okay.
Trauma-informed therapy can be really helpful
Yeah.
in processing these emotions, and connecting with others who've been through similar experiences
Right.
can provide a sense of validation.
Yeah, like you're not alone.
Exactly, and a sense of community.
It's about recognizing that healing takes time
It does.
and that seeking professional help is a sign of strength,
Absolutely.
not weakness.
And remember, you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
These scams are more common than people realize.
Yeah.
And there are resources out there that
Right.
help you through this.
Well, this has been a really, really eye-opening deep dive.
Yes.
We've covered the mechanics of these scams,
Yeah.
the psychology behind them,
Mm.
and the steps victims can take to recover
Right.
and seek justice.
It's a complex issue
It is
with no easy solutions.
Yeah.
But awareness, education, and empathy are so important in fighting these scams and supporting those who've been affected.
If there's one takeaway from all of this,
Mm-hmm.
it's to be vigilant, to be informed,
Yes.
and to be compassionate.
Absolutely.
Remember, if you or someone you know has been affected by a bride scam, there is help available.
Reach out.
Yeah.
Seek support and know that healing is possible.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time, stay curious, stay safe,
Mm-hmm.
and stay informed.